Steve, what do you think about that? I mean, it really was, in my mind, a picture of two leaders over the weekend.
Well, I don't think anyone's surprised about the attitude of the Australian public toward Anthony Albanese. I mean, I think you put it absolutely correctly. I mean, he doesn't know how to be a leader. Now, when he took over the Labor Party and when he eventually got to become Prime Minister, I think a lot of people hoped that he would be the type of leader that we wanted, but he's turned out to be, and history has a remarkable, and I'm interested in Jeff's view on this, it has a remarkable way of repeating itself. I was looking up the results in the 2013 federal election today to write a column about exactly what you're talking about, Shari, and Tony Abbott won 18 seats, and Kevin Rudd was seen as the comeback kid, but he was not liked. He was not warmly embraced by the majority of Australians. He might have been in 2007, but by 2013, we'd all had enough of Kevin Rudd. We wanted him out of the joint. We wanted him gone. And watching people, Chalmers filling up sandbags reminded me of the time that Kevin Rudd tried to do it. And so we've got here, I think, history repeating itself. Can Peter Dutton win 18 seats? It's yet to be seen, but it's eerily like it was back then.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, Jeff, the news poll in your paper today, if this applied nationally, it's only a 3% swing against Labor, which is around 7 lost seats. But we know the polls were wildly wrong in the US election with Trump and Kamala Harris. So, we could be looking at a hung parliament, but I don't know. I think all the polls are showing that voters see Albanese as weak. I don't know how in this climate they vote someone they see as weak back in. Jeff Chambers, what do you think?
Hi, Shari. So we're going to see a lot of movements up and down, and the news poll actually matches what I'm hearing from the major parties in terms of their internal tracking polling. So there's been some recovery for Anthony Albanese, but it's from a very low bar. So he's still deeply unpopular. They're still on track to form a minority government. And the challenge now for them, and there's a few unknowns because they were so set in stone from Albanese's perspective on April 12, is how do they execute this budget and how do they perform in the campaign? And on the flip side of that for Peter Dutton is just to be presenting a vision that is a vision that will sell to the voter that they are ready to govern and that they do have the experience. And obviously their catchphrase will be, are you better off now than you were in 2022? And that things need to be put back on track. So I think, you read the polls week to week, whether it's economic indicators or things happening globally, and you're going to see some movement up and down. But either way, it's still a pretty poor position for Anthony Albanese.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's have a look at, and by the way, I'm going to come back to news poll later on my show when I've got Cameron Milner and Andrew Carr as well, so we will stick with the politics in this hour. But now let's have a look at what Donald Trump said about Malcolm Turnbull on social media today. Here's the remark. He said, Malcolm Turnbull, the former Prime Minister of Australia, who was always leading that wonderful country from behind, never understood what was going on in China, nor did he have the capacity to do so. I always thought he was a weak and an ineffective leader, and obviously Australians agreed with me. Now, it's possible that Trump was responding to an interview that Malcolm Turnbull did with Bloomberg. He had this to say about Trump's tariffs.
And if this triggers a global wave of protectionism around the world, that's clearly going to be bad for business everywhere. Trump seems to have a view that America can prosper at the expense of everybody else. But that's not going to work. It appears that the more dependent you are on the United States, the closer you are to the United States, the more he feels he can extract value from you, stand over you, extort you. I mean, look at the business with Greenland.
Well, Steve, it looks like Malcolm Turnbull might have made it even less likely that Trump gives Australia a tariff exemption.
Yeah, look, Donald Trump summed up Malcolm Turnbull perfectly. It's exactly what I've thought about him for years, and the Australian public voted him out for that same reason. I mean, Malcolm always thinks he's the smartest bloke in the room. Just ask Jeff, he'll tell you. Malcolm always thought he was the smartest bloke going around. Donald Trump's come out and said, well, he's a weak Yeah, a weak leader, all right. He was a weak leader in the Australian public. I just mentioned Tony Abbott winning 18 seats. Malcolm managed to lose 17 of those when he went to the election after knocking Abbott off. So, look, we don't need this bickering. I mean, Turnbull has hit out again tonight. He's done an interview somewhere and he's doubled down on it, which Malcolm would, predictably would do. And it would have just, I reckon, Shari, bruised the Turnbull ego slightly to have the most powerful man in the world talking about him in such disparaging ways.
Or maybe he'd love the fact that he's noticed him. But, Jeff, I had a report last week on the show that Albanese hasn't even been able to get Donald Trump on the phone. The tariffs are now due to take effect in 2 days' time. Turnbull certainly hasn't helped the case.
No, and Malcolm Turnbull famously loves the limelight. There's some former PMs that chase it, and others who don't. And Malcolm Turnbull obviously enjoys this type of intervention. But as we've been talking about, Thursday Australian time is when the steel and aluminium tariffs are due to hit. We've seen Penny Wong first, then Richard Marles, and then Jim Chalmers all head to the States. It's not looking likely, and the government is saying that internally. They're actually concerned about other tariffs that might be coming down the line. So, a few days out, Malcolm Turnbull pops up, gets the limelight. I think he would like that response. But on China, just quickly, a bit unfounded because, Malcolm Turnbull, to give him a little bit of credit, he was an early mover on China. He banned Huawei. He put in those tough foreign interference laws that Beijing railed against, and the US and Five Eyes actually followed us on that. So just to add a bit of balance there for Malcolm Turnbull.
Oh, that's nice of you, Jeff. I do recall.
Don't worry about balance, Jeff. Don't worry about that.
I was in Canberra at the time, and James Patterson, Andrew Hastie, Peter Dutton were behind a lot of those moves.